I'll yield to Congressman Latta from Ohio for his line of questioning.
Well, thank you very much. And again, thanks to our witnesses for being here. And I just want to follow up with my good friend from Texas. You know, I can't believe it's been already the 115th Congress. We passed H.R. 6. We took over 60 pieces of legislation. It was bipartisan to try to get to this opioid crisis that we had at that time. And as the doctor said, that we've watched things change. But the one thing that has not changed, unfortunately, are having our family members here and hearing your testimony. And you know, I've had events in my district where we're having on the opioid crisis, with the prescription drug side of this. But now, you know, we're dealing with this. But the one thing is not changing is hearing from you. And we want to make sure that this gets stopped. And again, we put forth a good piece of legislation, but we have to keep continuing because, again, the other side keeps changing what they're doing out there. And when we've seen, as you brought forward, the information about the 108,000 people that passed away in the last year from drug overdoses, but the vast majority of those being fentanyl related, when we've seen those numbers have dropped back, but we've seen them just skyrocket since the 115th Congress now. And it's not getting any better. And so we want to make sure that, you know, as my good friend from Virginia and I have been working on legislation to have this as a Scheduled I drug, and making sure that, you know, researchers can continue their study. But it's important we get it done because, again, these are the hearings that we don't want to have anymore. We don't want to hear this. But it's important that, you know, again, for you to come forward because, again, too often, this is what I said, when I was in the Ohio legislature, I chaired judiciary committees. And I said, these are not just names or statistics out there. These are real people with family members that are going to, you know, for the rest of their lives, think about this and have it on their heart. So I think it's important that, you know, we move forward. And again, unfortunately, you know, this morning on the news, I was listening to one of the programs, and they're talking about the fentanyl being seized at the border. And unfortunately, when I've been at the border on a couple of occasions, you know, our Border Patrol agents are no longer doing what they're supposed to be doing. They become what they've called this morning social workers in too many cases. So we got to get them back out doing this because when you think about the 14,000 pounds of fentanyl that came to this country, that there was interdicted, that's, you know, 7.5 times as much fentanyl that could kill every American, 7.5 times over. So we've got our work to do. But, you know, if I could I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Canarium?
Canarium, yes.
You brought something up because this is our jurisdiction is very wide here. Not only do we have health, but we also have on the telecommunications side, which when you think about the internet and everything else, but you said something, you know, when you talk about the fake prescription drugs being sold over online. Could I get your perspective of how we could, you know, start right there as to what we need to be doing to try to make sure that we can get this off and you know, go to these, the internets and say, look, we've got to clean this stuff up and you can't have this stuff online. So how can we, as this committee, move forward on that?
Yeah, that's a very great question, Congressman. Thank you so much for asking. Because it's social media, the cartels and the distribution networks are using social media platforms to relentlessly expand their business and deceptively sell these fake pills to young people and teenagers alike. Social media companies are not doing enough to self-regulate. They know that their platforms are being used to sell illegal drugs. DEA, survivors, Congress, and the media have told social media companies this, right? So the online sale of drugs violates the terms of the services of the social media companies. The companies should be doing more to prevent their platforms from being used to sell illegal drugs. And there needs to be greater transparency and accountability to force social media companies to change. More resources, including technology and human review, for example, need to be devoted to stop the sale of drugs on social media platforms. And I think additionally, you know, law enforcement needs the ability to conduct properly authorized judicial investigations. And so having these companies be compliant with judicial orders, allowing law enforcement to investigate would be very helpful as well.
Thank you. And if I could just ask a real quick question before my time runs out to Dr. Westlake. You know, you're talking about on the what we need to be doing out there on scheduling. What's your opinion, what we need to get done, and because it's got to get done sooner than later?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working on this for 6 years, and it's kind of mind-boggling to me that an idea like this, which really is, it completely shuts off the spigot of fentanyl-related substances. So it stops them from being created in the first place. And so, I mean, there's all this illicit fentanyl and there's all this other stuff out there. I look at it like a fire hydrant with multiple spigots on it. We've shut down the fentanyl-related substance spigot of new substances. And so why open it back up? And that's what would happen if it doesn't become permanent. So it's to me, and my wife has told me she doesn't know why I have to keep coming out here. I've been out here for several hearings. And it's a no-brainer. It just needs to happen. And there's research accommodations that you guys have come up with, which I think are great as well. And I think it just needs to happen.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And again, thanks to our witnesses, and I yield back.